Hey, welcome back. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Now let's see who this caravan might be. The chapter is called Friends. Jotham couldn't believe his eyes. He kept staring, expecting the sight to vanish like the mirages he'd seen many times in the desert. But every time he blinked, the image was still there. Camels! Hundreds of them, it seemed. And not the mangy, broken-hoofed kind he was used to. These camels were huge and strong and young. They stood proudly, their heads high in the air, gold-braided cords running from their bits in their mouths to the saddles between their humps. Then there were the people, two for every one camel, it seemed, all dressed in flowing robes of red and purple and blue. The men all wore turbans of white cloth, and the women had veils over their faces. The tents of these people were nothing like those of Jotham's father. Instead of goatskin, they were made of a funny cloth that shimmered in the sun and blew easily in the breeze. Each was made of many colors and came to a point high in the air. Then, high in the air, Jotham saw the strangest sight of all. A wooden frame covered in colorful cloth danced in the wind. It was held there by a string, and the string led down to the ground, where it was held by a small boy. Jotham had never seen anything so magical, and wondered for a moment if evil spirits were at work. Jotham stood staring at the scene, not believing that any caravan could be so rich or so beautiful. Was he actually going to be traveling with these people, he wondered? Nathan led Jotham down to the caravan. There he asked around until he finally found the man he was looking for. "Salamar!" Nathan shouted. The man turned, and Jotham saw that he wore a huge turban with a red stone in the center. "Nathan? Nathan, my friend!" The two men met and kissed each other on the cheeks. "Nathan, I am pleased to see you once again. You have grown old, my friend." Nathan laughed. "I am at least not so young as when we raided the Sultan's armory," he said. Jotham could hardly believe that Nathan knew such a rich man, or that he had ever done something so bold as raid the armory of a sultan. All Jotham ever knew was that Nathan read and copied scriptures all day. The two men all but ignored Jotham as they talked about former times, but Jotham didn't mind. He enjoyed watching the people and seeing all the riches this caravan held. Finally, Nathan introduced Jotham, and Jotham bowed as he'd been taught. "It is my honor to be in your presence," he said politely. The older man smiled and bowed. "Perhaps," Salamar said, "I should have my son entertain the boy while we talk." "That would be excellent," Nathan said, and Jotham nodded his head eagerly. Salamar called to the boy who was holding the string. He was about Jotham's age, and, after handing the string to a servant, came running over, his green and black robe flowing behind him. "Yes, father," the boy said. "This is Jotham of Jericho. He is our guest. Treat him as such." That was all the instruction the boy needed. He bowed deeply to Jotham and said, "May the sheep on 1,000 hilltops grace your father's flock, and may you find peace and joy among the tents of my father." Jotham returned the bow, and then the other boy introduced himself. "I am Ishtar of Persia. It will be my honor to be your host on this most glorious day." With the formalities of protocol taken care of, the two boys ran off among the tents and camels, Ishtar leading the way. Even though they were in Jotham's own land near the town of his birth, Jotham knew it was Ishtar's duty to act as host as long as they were in his father's camp. As they passed the servant still holding the string, Jotham threw his head back and stared up into the sky. "What is that thing?" he asked, pointing to the cloth that flew. Ishtar looked up. "It's a kite," he said plainly. "It flies on the breath of the god of wind." The two boys wandered through the camp, but Jotham kept looking up at the kite in wonder. "This is my uncle Jodhpur's tent," Ishtar said, and Jotham gaped at the fine stitchery and colorful designs on the walls of the tent. "He comes from the house of Rajasthan." This meant nothing to Jotham, but he knew it would be impolite to say so. Smaller tents surrounded the large one of Ishtar's uncle. Jotham could see many women inside the tents and asked Ishtar about them. "Those are my uncle's favorite wives," he said. "He left the rest at home." Jotham was amazed at this. He'd known men who had had 2 or 3 wives before, but never had he seen dozens of women married to one man. "Where is home?" Jotham asked. "We come from Amaranth, and you are from Jericho, correct?" "Well, yes, that is where I was born. But my family are shepherds, and we live wherever the grazing is best, or there is a market for our sheep and wool." "Where's your family now?" Ishtar asked. And so Jotham told him. He told him about finding his father's camp deserted, though he didn't say why, and about finding his own grave. He told how he had been picked up by another family of shepherds, how Decha of Megiddo tried to sell him into slavery, and about Nathan's daring rescue in En-Gedi. He told of their flight to Qumran, and about Silas being killed here in Jericho, and about Elizabeth and Zechariah, and how he, Jotham of Jericho, was going to be the cousin of the Messiah. Then he told of Nathan's second rescue, and how Caleb had killed most of Decha's men. And when Jotham had finished telling all, Ishtar sat cross-legged in the sand, with his head bowed. Jotham sat next to him, and after several minutes said, "Ishtar, what is wrong?" Ishtar spoke slowly, without raising his head. "I hang my head in shame for you, Jotham of Jericho." Jotham was shocked. "Why?" he asked. "Because many men were killed on my account?" Ishtar sucked in his breath, then slowly shook his head. "No," he said, "I am embarrassed for you because you have to make up stories to impress me. In my land that is called Paz Dadan, the building of a false image." Jotham looked at Ishtar, anger rising inside of him like hot lava. "Ishtar," he said through his teeth, "everything I have told you is the truth." Ishtar just shook his head slowly again and refused to look at Jotham. Finally, Jotham pulled him to his feet and said, "Follow me." Nathan and Salamar were sitting beside a fire, drinking tea, as Jotham and Ishtar approached. Ishtar's father frowned at the boy and said, "Ishtar, why do you hang your head in shame?" Ishtar fidgeted, not wanting to tell on his friend. "Ishtar, answer," his father commanded. Slowly, painfully, Ishtar said, "My friend Jotham has made the Paz Dadan." Ishtar's father looked from Jotham to Nathan and back, then to his son, said, "What did he tell you?" Ishtar gave a brief summary, now trying to make it sound less preposterous, in order to keep Jotham's punishment to a minimum. And when he finished, Nathan began laughing, and laughed so hard he fell on his side, and knocked over the pitcher of tea. "Ishtar," he said, wiping his eyes, "everything Jotham told you is absolutely true." Ishtar's eyes grew wide as a grapefruit. "But this cannot be," he said, slumping to the ground. "My friend Jotham is no older than myself. To have such adventures!" Ishtar looked at Jotham like he was a holy man, but now it was Jotham who hung his head in shame. "It is true," he said, "that much has happened to me in the last few days. But all of this happened, Ishtar, because I did a bad thing. Nathan's friend Silas lives no more because of my disobedience." It was quiet for a moment. Then Salamar said, "It is a wise man who recognizes the fruits of his errors. It is a compassionate man who regrets that fruit. You are truly becoming a man, Jotham of Jericho." Salamar's kind words felt like a soothing ointment on a burn to Jotham. He smiled a little. Then Nathan said, "Jotham, my friend Salamar and his caravan are headed west toward Jerusalem. He has agreed to take you as far as his course allows." Jotham's smile doubled in size. This time he was headed home for sure, and with Decha of Megiddo dead, there was nothing that could stand in his way. Sometimes people feel as if they have to make up stories about themselves so people will like them. Sometimes they feel they have to take the real things they do and brag about them. Sometimes people don't feel loved unless they're the center of attention. But Jesus came to earth exactly for the purpose of letting us know that every one of us is equally loved by God. It does not matter how many people think we're great, and it does not matter how many great things we do. So instead of needing other people to tell us we're good and acceptable, all we have to do is listen to God's voice whispering in our ear saying, "I love you just the way you are." It doesn't matter what other people think. Jotham wasn't bragging when he told Ishtar about his adventures, but Ishtar was right when he said that telling tales and talking about yourself is building a false image. It means that you don't believe you're a very good person, so you have to try to convince others that you are. But there is a simple cure for feelings like that. The cure is only to worry about what God thinks of you, rather than what other people think of you. And on that very first Christmas day, God said to you, "I love you more than anything in this universe." Well, thank you all for sticking with us so far. We're going to continue next time when we see you tomorrow. Till then.